I once saw Ray Bradbury, and he said, "It's really sad that after all this time, we don't have jetpacks yet."
Jetpacks. Hey,
Wouldn't it be great to have jetpacks these days?
Oh yeah. Well, I wanted the flying cars, though. I think they're really way more fun.
Well, we kind of have half-assed jetpacks, but we haven't been back to the moon yet. We haven't been to Mars. We haven't done all these things that we could be doing. All these wonderful things.
I do that all the time.
Do you?
Yeah. I have the whole universe.
Well, I remember watching your photos outside, of the lake and stuff in Chicago, and there's a little travel there. You can see this spirit of, wanting to go and explore new things in you.
Well, what's really cool is I was showing Terry yesterday when I took this picture of the sky, and I was trying to capture this cloud because it looked like a heart. And I wanted to post it on Twitter so I could say, Portland Heart SOBCon. But the clouds move so fast that the heart disappeared, but suddenly, and so it was a face of a kitten. Did I show you that?
No.
And then when I showed it to Terry, and he's seen so many of these things that I've like animals and things, because I tag him, that he called me "she who sees things in clouds." That's my
the
new
official
Indian
Native
name.
American name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, opportunities with clouds move so fast, like opportunities in life, And what makes you so curious about people? I see you take a look at people all the time. What makes you curious? What makes you curious about relationships?
But those are two really different questions. I'm curious about people because I'm so weird.
That's a very Portland thing to say. It's not a Chicago thing to say. Chicago's not super weird.
I do. See, I don't know what's a Portland thing or a Chicago thing, because I'm having enough trouble figuring out what's a Liz thing and an everybody thing, So, for you to know about me is a good thing, and I'm very grateful. For me to know about you is self-preservation, because your rules are way more universal. Well, not yours personally, but because you're Angel. But I mean, most people's rules are way they get why everybody likes those jeans, and I just go I don't. So I don't get why you have to like those jeans just because everybody else does, sort of thing. So I have to figure that out, and the only way you can figure that out is by talking to people and listening to what they say and finding out.
Well, speaking about Liz and so on, what's the biggest myth about you, and what's the biggest myth out there about you?
Oh, that I always know where I'm going, and that I'm really, really nice. Because there are plenty of people in this room who know that's not true, and one of them's probably my son. He's got more experience than anybody. But it's kind of whenever there's legends being made about anybody, that legends flatten people out. No matter who, whether it's a rock star or a movie star or a person in your neighborhood, if a legend gets made, it's only a flat caricature. And I guess if I'm going to have one, boy, I like that one a lot. But it's a little scary because
it ties well into our labels in a way that you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Legends, myth, labels, anything that we stick on somebody, it's not them.
Yeah, so I'm really careful to not let people put me on a pedestal, because the minute you let somebody put you on a pedestal, whether it's your kids, your family, or your coworkers, or anything, and believe me, I learned everything I know by doing it wrong. The minute that you do that, then you're letting other people define who you are, and you don't know what that definition is. You can't know because it's in their head. And so sooner or later, you're going to step outside that definition, and they're going to consider it a betrayal. And that pedestal is going to fall out from under you, and it's not going to feel good when you land.
Is that why, like, when you stop following somebody on Twitter, they get mad? Because, suddenly Liz is not following me on Twitter anymore. I mean, it must be personal.
Angel, you're the only person I unfollowed on Twitter.
See, I mean, this is why I'm bringing this up. I'm calling you to the table here.
I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it. I waited 3 weeks. It looks like, because once Laurel told me when I was really ticked off at somebody about 3 years ago, she told me that if wait 3 weeks before you do anything, like, Twitter didn't even exist, I don't think then, but it was like, I think I wanted to, like, remove somebody from the SOB list. And she said, wait 3 weeks before you do anything because they'll connect it to what they did.
Well...
You remember? I don't know.
Well, with all these artificial things like clout scores and Empire Avenue, which I personally think you have an addiction to, we really need to make an intervention with. Being out there, I want to know if Facebook, Twitter, and all these things went away, do people still remember how to, like, interact with each other without Facebook and Twitter? In this room specifically, if I took away all your smartphones, you guys could still...
I did...
I think maybe Portland that's true, but I think Silicon Valley would burn to the ground today if that happened.
I'm not even really sure what the boundaries of Silicon Valley are. You know that? Like,
somewhere between Dave McClure's ego and Michael Arrington's ego?
Oh, okay. Well, I can get that. There we go.
Ooh.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Ouch. What's the biggest mistakes do you see people and businesses repeating over and over again?
They try to fill potholes instead of building roads. They like go out and they look out and they say, oh, the market needs this, so I'm going to be one of those. And they apply all their brain power and everything else into doing that. And it's all their head and none of their heart, and so they don't. You end up getting bored, and you end up not doing it right, and you end up like getting angry at the work you're doing because it's not who you are, and conflicts arise around that kind of stuff.
Does that limit invention?
Yeah, I think it. Actually, I think it just limits life. I think that every human being is like filled with a genetic predisposition. Like, I have skills that I was born with that are both, every one of my strengths is a weakness. But if I go with my strengths and I see every opportunity to go with my strengths, I'm going to be able to fill a need that I have been genetically programmed to fill. But if I go looking for potholes, then
you're filling a process.
I might know how to be a really good writer, but if I'm a person who sees things in clouds, that may not be the best use of my potential to change the world.
You're really good at reinventing and adapting and these things that drive life forward. Is that part of your genetics? And how can people do that? Who find themselves stuck?
Can I edit your question?
Anytime.
I would like to, actually, can I tell you one? When I was in high school, I once got a perfect, all the answers right on an English test, but
did you cheat?
No, the teacher took off 10 points because there was a true and false question that was a quote from The Merchant of Venice that said, humor is the quality of man. And I just couldn't bring myself to write it as true, so I crossed out the and put and then marked it true, and true was the right answer, but she took off 10 points for editing the test. We got to be friends. I had her for 3 years. By the third year, she was I was getting A's all of those years, but by the third year, I was actually getting good grades in deportment too, because she didn't think I was an asshole anymore. And I wasn't really. I actually like punished myself and wrote 100 times I will not edit the test and gave it to her like I was a freshman in high school. That's what a nerdy kid I was. Like, shit, oh my God, I like broke the rules. Anyway, I guess I am lawful. But around the world, what I was going to edit about what you were saying is that...
Reinventing.
Yep, that's it. I don't believe in reinventing things. I think we're doing too much reinventing of things.
Thank you, Hollywood.
I think we need to reconnect. I think that we've gotten our heads like unconnected from our hearts. When we were talking to Britt this morning, like she was talking about like when I went from like farmer girl Liz to Liz with Heidi Thorne's haircut. And that was a whole different thing. And that was kind of cool because we actually went and did a values baseline on who I am. And we identified 5 words that define me before we ever started talking about what it was I would wear, or what color my hair would be, or how it would be cut, or anything. So that everything I wore would not only just fit me physically, but would also fit my personality. So it would underscore the message of who I am, as opposed to contradict the message of who I am, which was apparently getting in the way before. And if you saw the before and after pictures, you would agree, because the memory is a lot softer than the actuality. But and one of the things that Kali said to me, who helped me do that, was she said, I have no question that the people who know you and read your blog get you. But I can't help but believe that the way you look is putting you into a box that is making people think you're one thing. And when you start talking and being something else, the contradiction and the discord doesn't work for you, and that your life will become so much easier. And in fact, it was like shedding, it was like when I learned to trust myself and people trusted me more. It was like, a few people were there when it happened, but, and it wasn't a case of I got more confidence. It was a case of people were immediately recognizing me. I didn't have to fight so hard to prove to them who I was, or who I am, because I still am who I was. At least I hope so.
Last rechecked.
Yeah, okay. No, today you're Larry.
We spent a lot of time this weekend talking about social good. And in that context, we have a lot of businesses, a lot of corporations, and since this is kind of a heated topic, I'd like to know, should businesses be treated like people? Should businesses have the same rights as people?
I'm not, will businesses have the right, the same rights as people? Can you clarify? I don't even know what that means.
No? Well,
I really don't.
So I don't actually understand what it means either, per se, but in the law, in the corporations treated like people have the same rights as people. We've given them
You mean like they
certain
get
sets
to
of
use
rights.
the public restroom? I really don't know what you mean.
Well, instead of the public restroom, they're using the local rivers and stuff, but those rights of. We can pass on this question.
No. Well, I don't think so. Because if you let a business, a conglomerate, a group of, and it would be a business, a group of any. Do countries have the same rights as people? Do Girl Scout troops have as a troop have the same rights as people?
Only corporations.
WTF, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Well, then I'm going to be a corporation 4 days a week. It's not a moral or an ethical thing from my point of view. It's just it doesn't make sense. When I do the math, it just doesn't make sense. So, like, prove to me the value proposition in it, and maybe I'll agree. But, like, right now, it doesn't, like... Let's go talk about the clouds again.
I'm good with that. You know, profit meets purpose. What triggered that for you here?
What point are you talking about? Like, why did I put profit meets purpose in Portland?
Yes.
Well, you know, first of all, we really wanted to have an event in Portland because Terry lives here and has embraced the community, and
despite the fact of the coffee thing, Terry, but we'll get back to that one.
Yeah, well, I'm working on like changing his name too. If you haven't noticed, it's like this is all a little plot. That is, I like change everybody else's name. Then when I change his name to Stumps, he won't notice. But
can we just call him Terry Stumptown from now on?
Yeah, okay.
Instead of Starbucker?
Yeah, that'll work. I mean, you know, we could start a whole like trend, and it could go viral. Stumptown Starbucker. You know, I mean, that could work. We could start a rock band too. But I really wanted, I didn't want to do another Chicago event in Portland because you can't do another Chicago event in Portland because Portland is in Chicago. And, you know, like we're not going to have the speakeasy here. We're not going to do what we do, like the traditions and the rituals who have grown up around. And so I also really, really hate it when people come into Chicago and do things and they don't show respect to the community. You know, like they just like bring in and drop their event and then leave, you know, and sort of like, you know, fly over, go, you know, and sometimes they do it even more rudely, like they try and milk everybody's network to like promote their event and whatever. But I knew Terry was going to be here for a very long time, and I wanted to like honor the community in the same way and respect the community in the same way that he had shown respect to Chicago. And so, of course, the first thing was the cityscape versus the tree line. I mean, like, that's like, anybody could get there. And then it was like, you know, it started out where your conscience meets the street. And then it became where the forest is the trees. You know, like I'm called up Carol Roth and went, I'm going to say this and tell me if you get it, you know. And called up Terry, you know, it's like I don't know what's a Liz thing and what's an everybody thing. So I have to go check, you know. Sometimes people give me the RCA dog look, you know. I was like, okay, that one didn't work.
They make the Scooby noise?
Yeah. And so then it got to, what you know, call it what it is, the steakhouse. And and Terry wanted to call it Where Purpose Meets Profit. And I said, no, because I wanted purpose to be the last word in the sentence, the word that, you know, where everybody thinks about profit, where profit meets purpose, because purpose is what the community is about. And purpose is the last word that stays in your head. And so I was really, my vision, my goal, my objective, my mission, my higher calling was to build, you know, if Chicago was grape, then Portland would be lime, different flavor of the same experience, and to allow it to grow in its own way, in its own place.
And what have you learned from this weekend?
What have I learned from this weekend? That we rarely, well, it's sort of an outgrowth of something that I've been discovering over the last year, that we often define ourselves by what we were like 2 years ago, because we don't own what we know now, and we don't bring it into the room with us, so we start, you know, presenting ourselves as who we were in 2009, you know, and acting like we were in 2009 because we're so busy worrying about what we haven't done and we wanted to accomplish by now that we're we're not owning like all the things we already accomplished because we debrief our failures to like such a great degree, but we like toast our successes and move on, and we never really own them. And it's more than celebrating them. It's like saying, wow, I got GoToMeeting as a sponsor. How the heck did we do that? You know, it's like, what did we do right to make that happen? Because they're, you know, I love you. You know, I mean, seriously. But, you know, and so when I woke up this morning, like after all the processing, like a totally new thought hit me. They do, like they were, I was up against the wall. I was like, wow. And it was like, when I went to Sundance Publishing and they asked me to turn around the company that was failing, and the guy who owned the company was one of the smartest people, one of the richest people I ever knew, owned a holding company in New York. It was billions of dollars. You can look it up online. I don't know what they're worth now, but it's called the Wicks Group. He was one of the 5 partners. And we were in books, and all of their other properties were magazines and newspapers. And he didn't know what business he was in until I explained that books are different than magazines and newspapers because books have inventory that lasts for 10 years. And it's really expensive to make a mistake in a book because you can't fix it next month like you can in a magazine. And his answer was, whoa, so this is a little like venture capital. And I went, well, yeah, you could look at it that way. But my point is like what hit me was the people in this room, like we assume because we're only one that those people at the corporations have it all figured out. But from that moment forward, I started paying attention, and it is so rare to find anybody at any level in any business who actually knows what business they're in. And that's why, you know, mergers and acquisitions fail, because they're playing Monopoly and they don't really care about what kind of hotel they put on Boardwalk, you know? So I really think the people in this room are ahead of where Ed Berner was because he had quit asking the question of what business am I in?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that entrepreneurs are brave enough to ask the question and move quickly. Sometimes I see corporations, and one of my favorite examples is a computer company recently that I was talking to, who's an international computer company who their US office couldn't provide for their South American office the same tools because they weren't in the same budget. So they were letting the South American office die. And they were hamstringing themselves for their own competition. And entrepreneurs these days that can ask and adapt and move.
Well, that was actually one of the strategies that we used to turn around the company because we were like the 10-foot booth at the big conference, and our competition was like the 90-foot booth going in to be bought by either the General Cinema or the Paramount or the whatever, the next round, because that was the cycle. And so they were so busy looking at their European division and their other divisions that they had totally lost sight of their customers. And we just like zinged in, and all we cared about was the customer. You know, and the first books I put on the table, I said, we're going to do these books. And the founder of the company, it said something like, you know, those books are a little irreverent. And I went, yep, and that's exactly why we're going to do them, because everybody else is publishing for each other, and everybody else, we're going to publish for 7th grade boys who are reading at 2nd grade reading level, and if you don't make it irreverent, they ain't going to read it. Yeah. And that product, our first product, had an internal rate of return of something like 63, which is kind of amazing. And went to break even within 9 months and ended up becoming a whole reading line called Second Chance Reading that was like state of the art.
There's something about you, and there's something about every time I've come to a SOBCon that it's always been serendipitous for me. What about you attracts serendipity?
Serendipity. So what about me? It attracts serendipity. The fact that I attract amazing people. You're a proof.
Let's do the ritual hug.
Virtual group hug.
Well, that was amazing.
Think we should go back to the conference?
Yes, we should.
All right.
Who's next,
Anybody
Terry?
noticed that we were gone?
I don't
All right, so
all those
let's go
voices
back.
I hear and clapping my head, I don't know.
Oh, well, no, that's just my head firing into yours. Yeah, it's my head.
Well, that's good. We'll go off this way.
All right. Earl wants to ask a question.
I'm going to play Terry Starbucker here.
You look like him too. Okay, you have a very unique perspective and vision, and you have also a wide variety of clients that you work with, corporate and individual businesses and things. I'd like to know from your perspective, with that unique perspective and vision, what is the most common thing that you have to educate businesses about social media? What do you have to teach them? The most common thing.
That businesses grow the way that they've always grown, and that if you can say any sentence that you say with the word social media in it, you should be able to remove that term and put in the word telephone, and the sentence should still work. And there was a time when companies only had one telephone. But you know what? They figured out that that wasn't a good idea and that everybody needed one because it was a way to talk to people.